Here's how I made my Aayla belt, tabards and shoe details. All you need to build this yourself is dark brown stretch pleather, lighter brown pleather, optionally fabric backing. I used a lighter pleather here, your choice of pattern fabric, eyelets with about 5 to 6 mm diameter, scissors, bobbins or fabric clips, a box cutter or craft knife, fabric glue, contact cement, a mask for gluing, 1 to 2 mm thick EVA foam, sewing chalk, basic sewing equipment, and of course, a sewing machine. I'll link you the products I used in the video description, minus the pattern fabric because this one I got gifted and didn't find it online. This tutorial is based on my patterns you can find in my Etsy shop. You can click the link in the description and also check out my Patreon where I give early access to content and upload crafting insights too. Now let's get started. First, cut out the tabard front and back parts as well as the frames from the lighter pleather. Don't forget to add at least 1 cm of seam allowance all around. Clip them together right on right side and sew around. Then cut the seam allowance and turn it around. Before the next step, it is important to iron the pieces. Pleather can't be ironed directly, so use a soft cotton cloth in between your iron and the fabric. Mark your seam allowance on the right side of the frame and cut the corner so you're able to turn it to face the inside. Now cut the tabard front and back from the pattern fabric with only adding 1 cm in the top and put it in between your pleather layers like shown here. If it's still a bit too big, cut away tiny amounts on the edges to make it fit. Put fabric glue on the seam allowances and pull them inside. Be careful not to get glue on the patterned fabric in places where it would show. Slowly move all around the tabard until all seam allowances are glued. Now iron again to activate the glue and make it easier to add stitches as shown here. Repeat all steps with the other tabard piece. Next up is the tabard front and back detail. Cut it out from 1 to 2 mm foam, from dark stretch pleather and from lighter pleather. Here again just a frame with at least 1 cm seam allowance added. Add contact cement to the foam and the pleather and glue them together. The reason why I use this glue here is because it sticks better than the fabric one if foam is involved. You can see that I trimmed the edges on the pleather slightly. This is optional here. Especially when gluing with contact cement, please wear a mask and work in a well-ventilated area. Does also protect from fabric glue fumes if you have big areas to glue. Add a line of glue all around the foam pleather thing and on the light brown pleather in the same space, then glue them together right to left side. Afterwards, cut little darts in the edges of the outside seam allowance to make it less bulky in the corners. Now add contact cement around the foam and on the seam allowance, glue it down and then turn it around again. Again, mark the seam allowance on the right side of the frame and cut the corner so you're able to turn it to face the inside. Put fabric glue on the seam allowances and pull them inside once more, working your way around the tabard detail. Mark the detail line as shown in the pattern and stitch around to create the detail seam. Add a second stitched line as on the tabards before. Repeat all steps on the other tabard detail piece. Yay! All tabard pieces are done. Let's move on to the belt. Cut out the belt front and back from 1 to 2 mm foam and with added seam allowance from dark brown stretch pleather. Then glue those two pieces together using contact cement. Put some more contact cement on the long sides of the seam allowance and glue them around the foam. Cut away the excess fabric and glue the short sides too. This is how it should look like now. Now cut out the pattern from lighter pleather or fabric backing again. This one can also be a tiny bit smaller than the original pattern. Glue it to the inside of the belt. I used the wrong side outside because it will help the belt stay in place better. Then add decorative stitches all around the belt. These will make it look more realistic. Repeat all steps on the other belt piece. Now mark the spots where the eyelets will go and add them on both belt pieces. Afterwards, cut out the belt bands. Don't forget to place them on the center fold of the fabric. Add fabric glue on their insides and glue them in on themselves to make sewing them easier. With a zigzag stitch, go around both bands to close the open edges. Then thread the band through the eyelets. This will be a bit hard because the band is very wide for them, but the belt will stay in place without sewing this way. Be careful that the belt front is the piece that goes on top too. Repeat on the other side. Now mark the middle of your tabard and belt pieces and pin them on, slightly wrapping over the belt top. Tabard front on belt front and back on back. Hand sew them in place carefully. Pin on the tabard detail pieces and mark around them with sewing chalk. Glue the detail pieces in place using fabric glue or contact cement, whatever works best for you here. Optionally, add a seam on the top. I found they look a bit better like this for me. And your Aayla belt is done, congratulations! Let's move on to the shoe details now. First try the pattern on your shoe and adjust the strap if needed. Cut out the shoe detail and band from 1 to 2 mm foam as shown here. Then cut the little slits marked in the pattern. I cut them a bit wider as it is easier to pass the fabric through afterwards. Afterwards, cut the shoe band from light brown pleather, adding seam allowance all around once again, then glue it to the foam using contact cement. Again, glue the long sides of the seam allowance to the foam, this time gluing them onto the seam allowance on the short sides too, as this part will be sewn or glued together later. Now cut the shoe detail from light brown pleather, adding seam allowance too, and mark the slits as shown. Also cut some tiny rectangles measuring around 3 to 3.5 cm per side. Putting right side on right side, sew around the shoe detail and cut away most of the seam allowance. On the back side that does not have the slit marks, mark a rectangle as shown and cut it out. Then cut the slits open with a craft knife. Then turn the whole thing inside out and mark the slits as shown here. Pin on the rectangles facing the inside as I do here and sew them on. Try to stay as close to the edge with your seam as you can. Thread the rectangles through the slits. This is how it looks now, and it definitely helps to iron it before the next step. Now cut around the foam edges to make it a bit smaller and fit better. Put contact cement on all parts very thoroughly and start gluing the foam into the pleather hull. Be careful to only put pressure when you're sure the placement is correct already. Put some more glue on the flaps and the seam allowance and pull them tightly around the foam so it looks neat from the front. Cut away excess fabric if there is any. Looking good. Now add a detail stitch all around the shoe detail and on the shoe band too. Assemble the shoe parts, be careful that you don't mix up the corresponding parts here and try it on your own shoes again. Place the open ends of the shoe band on each other and sew or glue them together. This part will be hidden behind the shoe detail anyways. Now slip it on your shoe to check the fit and add elastics as shown. Sew the elastics in place and repeat all steps on the mirrored shoe detail. And you're done! I can't wait for your creations with my patterns, so if you followed along, please tag me in your work in progress content, I'd love to see. Thank you!